Okay, so we have solved proportions this year, so hopefully this will be a review for you. Okay. First of all, an example of a proportion, a very easy proportion. This would be a proportion. Okay, 1/2 is the same thing as 3/6. So it's basically just two fractions that are equal to each other. When we're solving a proportion, what they do is they take away one of the numbers and you have to find that missing number. Okay? And there's two strategies that we can use to find the missing number. Sometimes it's easy, like in this one it would be pretty easy to find the missing number, and sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. Alright? So we're going to practice both ways. So 2 ways to solve. We'll start with the easy way. So if I have the proportion 2/9, and I'm saying that it equals 12 over something. 12 over some number. Sometimes they'll leave it blank, sometimes they could put a question mark, other times they might put a variable there. I'm going to put a variable there. I'm just going to use X's for these. Okay? So we're trying to figure out what that missing number is. Now, in these easy ones, what we can do is we can think about, if we're looking at the top, those two numbers relate to each other, and the numbers on the bottom relate to each other. So if we look at these two numbers that are given to us on the top, how the 2 relates to the 12. 2 times what is 12? 6. So that means that we need to do the same thing down here. We're doing 9 times 6, which is 54. And again, you can use your calculator, so even if you're not good with your math facts, then it should not be an issue, because you can use your calculator. So let's do a few more of these easier ones, okay? Let's say that we have 7/12, and I want to know what over 36 is equal to that. And again, I'm going to put an X here where that unknown number is. So I'm either looking on the top for the two numbers or looking on the bottom. And I see in this example, the two numbers I'm given are on the bottom. So the 12 is changing to a 36. 12 times what is 36? 3. So I'm going to do 7 times 3, and that's going to give me 21. Do you remember doing these earlier in the year? Good. We really need to know this skill and be good at this skill in order to be successful with scale drawings, which is in the 4th quarter for 7th grade. Okay. How about you try one then? Let's say I have 2/3, and I want to know 10 over what is the same thing. So you think about what you would do to solve for that. Alright, what'd you guys get for the missing number? 15. Because 2 times 5 is 10, so we're going to do 3 times 5 and get 15. Alright, problems that are very similar to this and are also falling under this category of being the easy type. They look a little bit different though, because we're going from bigger numbers to smaller numbers. For instance, in this proportion, 14/32 is the same thing as 7 over what? So obviously we can't do 14 times something to get 7, but we can do 14 divided by 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. So if we do 32 divided by 2, we get 16. Sometimes the number that you're finding is the number that's over here on the left, and that sometimes confuses people. Like if we have this. But you just need to think backwards, okay? So we can either do 60 divided by what is 12, or we can think 12 times what is 60. It's going to be the same number, right? 60 divided by 5 is 12, or 12 times 5 is 60. So if we know that the 5 is what we're working with, what times 5 equals 55, or you could think 55 divided by 5 equals what? Both ways it's going to give you that answer of 11. Okay, so your goal with these is finding that number. It's kind of like those fact families that you learned about in elementary school. Finding that number and then using that same number on top. Make sure your answer makes sense though. You wouldn't have a number that is really huge up here. If you did, then you probably made a mistake someplace. Okay, we're not going to do 55 times 5. What would that be, like 325 or something like that? No. I don't know. Someone do it. 55 times 5. 275? That sounds right. 275 wouldn't make sense here. 55 is smaller than 60, so we want a number that's smaller than 12. Okay? So make sure your answers are making sense. Alright, so that's way 1. Now, way 1 usually works, but it doesn't always work. Okay, and I'm getting ready to show you on some problems that it doesn't work. Now, the next method that we're going to use always works, and that's using cross products to solve. Okay, so let me again show you a proportion that we couldn't use that strategy on. For instance, 8 over 24 equals what over 30? I don't know. 24 times what is 30? I don't know. So we can't use the same method on these types of problems. And this is when we use something called cross products. So basically what we want to do here is we want to multiply diagonally. Okay, that's where the cross part comes in. Products is multiplying. So 24 times x equals 8 times 30. This is where you're really going to want your calculators for these problems. So again, the 24 and the x get multiplied, the 8 and the 30 get multiplied. So 24 times x is just going to be 24x. Using your calculator, what's 8 times 30? 240. How would I, this is like a one-step equation. 24 times what is 240? How do you find that number? How do you find that number? Division. You would divide by 24. So x would be 240 divided by 24, which a lot of you can probably do in your head, and it is 10. So cross products always works. Always, always. So 8 over 24 is the same thing as 10 over 30. Let's do a few more where we're using cross products, okay? How about we have 18 over 12, and it equals 15 over what? So I usually like to start, when I'm doing my cross products, I like to start with the pair that has my variable, because I like it when my variable is over on the left-hand side of my equation. So the 18 times x, and that's going to equal 12 times 15. Questions about that step? Everyone okay with that step? Alright, now we're using calculators. So 18x equals 12 times 15 is what? 180. So now we're going to do 180 divided by 18, which a lot of you, again, can do in your head. It's just coincidence that our answer is the same as the last problem. So 18 over 12 is the same thing as 15 over 10. Do you remember doing these? Yeah? You ready to try one on your own then? Okay. So use cross products to find the answer to this one. 10 over 30 equals what over 54? Again, you try this one. So again, I like matching up my number with my variable first. So 30 times x equals 10 times 54, which is 540. So to get x by itself, I'm going to do 540 divided by 30. And x equals 18. Very good. So sometimes people like cross products more than they like the first method that I showed you, because again, cross products will always work no matter what, but sometimes the other method, it doesn't work. It's quicker sometimes, but it doesn't always work. Also, I want to make sure that you know that sometimes you might get a decimal answer. So your numbers are not always going to be whole numbers. Let's do one of those. So if we have 3 over 24, and I want to know it equals what over 52. And I'm telling you right now that it's going to be a decimal answer, and that's okay. Go ahead and try that. All right, so hopefully you matched up your 24 and your x. And your 3 and your 52 need to be multiplied. What's 3 times 52? 156. So when I'm talking about showing your work on your paper, I do want to make sure that you are showing at least this right here. I want to see that 24x equals 156, okay? So then for x, we're doing 156 divided by 24. What is your answer? 6.5. 6.5. So you will have some on your assignment today that give you decimal answers, okay? And that's okay. You're not going to have any crazy decimals that don't end or anything like that. But you will have some decimals. All right? Any questions?